that I think that definitely plays a lot into how we manage money and how I manage money and my thought processes and the things that I do with money. But once I started living around the world, it did like a total 360.
Over the course of my life and career, I've discovered the power of consciously investing in mindset and personal development. It has been a true game changer for me in my personal and professional life, and I'm extremely excited that you decided to join us today to take one step forward in your own life. Most of my breakthroughs have come from one-on-one conversations. We created this show to bring you those unfiltered conversations each and every week. Hello, and welcome back to the Connected Mindset Live. I'm your host, Greg Tomczyk. Extremely excited to be back with you this Friday. Whether it's morning, afternoon, evening, hope you're having a wonderful day. And really looking forward to diving in here. I had a recent question from the community, and somebody asked me, what is a connected mindset? How did you even come up with that name? And one of the things I've realized through my career as a cybersecurity expert, helping people navigate crisis, is a lot of us don't do the pre-work, the hard work, the mindset work that we need to navigate when life throws us curveballs. I was a baseball player, so I kind of use that curveball analogy. I know I've gotten many curveballs. They've taught me more than the good things that have happened in my life. And that's why we put this show out, so that you can, along with us, do the hard work and we all get better by doing that. And at its premise, it's helping us all better connect with the world around us. And if we can be better connected, it makes us all better off at the end of the day. I believe that we each need three things in life: money, meaning, and self-mastery. And on today's show, we're going to hit on really all three of those aspects. But by popular demand, Mr. Tori Lee is back with us. I'm extremely excited to have him. Tori, how's the morning going? How's the afternoon going?
It's busy. You know what it took for me to get in front of this computer, so it's busy, man.
Excellent to hear. Yeah. I'm grateful that you decided to join us. We had multiple people ask after our previous episode a few weeks back if we could dive into a topic I think is really sensitive to a lot of people. Most people don't grow up talking about it. There's a looming economic crisis, which I think 95 to 99% of people blame their potential misfortune on, the government or the economic system or things that are coming, which put us in a fight or flight mode, and it doesn't allow us to optimally connect. So I want to start the conversation where we kind of left off on the previous show, and we didn't really get to the definition, but I want to give the audience a little view into how Tori defines, money as a word, and then, how it relates to people, how people live their lives based off of that definition.
Well, as I talked about on the last show, I equated money to get as much as you can and spend as much as you can. That was, and that's kind of, I think that's synonymous with American culture. Again, our access to it, how easy it is to get it. And even after failure in business or with failure in your personal finances, you file bankruptcy, and in some countries you're doomed. But with ours, it's like, okay, a couple of years and I'm back at the top and farther than I've even been. So that, I think that definitely plays a lot into how we manage money and how I manage money and my perception of money, my thought processes and the things that I do with money. But once I started living around the world, that it did like a total 360 as far as getting as much as I can and spending as much as I can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's that consumerism we talked about. And
yeah,
what was the first time that when you started to travel and you started to have conversations probably with people in these different countries and how they looked at it? How did it shift you from you make it, you spend it on things that you either need or want,
yeah,
and and then you get something in return. Maybe you consume that, and then it's gone. And that whole cycle of make it, buy something, consume it, and then it's gone. It's kind of that you don't really get anything as a permanent output or something that's elevating you continuously going forward, because it's not compounding if you're just consuming things as a
Right.
result of making money. Where was that light bulb moment for you when it was like, I need to save it, or I need to put it into assets that are going to continue to pay me, things of that nature?
Well, it wasn't an aha moment for me, because when I first left the States, I lived in South America, in Brazil. And while living in South America, in Brazil, I was traveling around South America, as well as still traveling throughout Europe and Asia. And that mindset, because I had a business and I sold it, and that mindset stayed with me, right? And you get in these different environments. I'll stick with Brazil. And of course, we see how in America how we treat people that have accumulated, substantial wealth, and that's relative. But it's I think it's amplified. Well, I know it's amplified. When I was living in Brazil, people, you can almost, I'm almost uncomfortable to say this. It's more like you're worshipped. I can give you verbatim what a woman said to me. I was having coffee one day at a place, and believe it or not, someone else said this to me in Europe, a business that I was trying to do business with. And she was like, "But you're from America. It's so big. You guys are so big. You can do whatever you want to do." So they see that. And then they treat you like that. And sometimes, like, some of the people that I was hanging with, I felt like they would treat me almost like they worked for me. And I'm like, no, I'm hanging with you guys, you know, because we're having fun. And then I was spending a lot too. So I had a little group, and we were looking at doing some type of entertainment thing in Brazil. And I remember one time we went out, and I wanted to reward them, and I bought. It was stupid. It was more of an experience. I bought like 30 bottles of champagne, and it was some parts of the night where it was like, these are my friends, but also like these are my employees and stuff like that. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then I was in Eastern Europe because I used to live in Romania, and he said, I was talking to a guy that had some type of real estate thing. He said the same thing. He's like, "Man, you're from America. I mean, you can do anything. I mean, you can create, you can buy, you can, but you got to understand my reaction to both of those people is like, well, yeah, it's difficult in there. Definitely in Brazil, it's definitely way more difficult than Romania. But I think Romania now has like one of the best economies right now as far as growth in the world. And to hear him say that, and just because I was living there, and you just like, but you can too. But that's just to show where they've, their historical of the country. Romania was on the other side of the Soviet bloc, so they were communists. It was hardcore communists there, to show where they're coming from. And again, we started, America started with, that was the whole thing of America, where no, it's not a monarch, it's not a king. One person, if this person works hard, right, and focuses and they can have this. They don't see money like that. It's always the kings and feudal, they've got the money, or the who else? If you want to go back, the ruling class is the best thing to say with Europe, and then the dictators, and who's part of in South America. Well, who's with and Brazil is still kind of like that. Who there's a group, and that group of people, within the government, and of course they started cracking. I saw them doing a lot of crackdowns when I was there, but they have the money. It's not seen. Money isn't seen like me and you, whereas it's not. I know we have a lot of people who talk like that in America, but I mean, once you get a little bit more intelligent to it, if you've ever achieved some goals that where money is the end, well, I won't say the end result, but it is a result of what you've done, then no, it's not. There's no such thing as us and them. It's just me. It's just me and what I do, my willpower, my intelligence, my creativity, right? How determined I am. A good deal of the world doesn't see it like that. They're
Mhm.
still operating kind of in a prehistoric. No, money is attributed to a group of people because they have the power.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah, somebody else has to bless you in order for you to get a
exactly.
certain money status as
Yes.
opposed to
Yes.
you
Yes.
owning your own
Yeah.
actions.
So that makes them view you and treat you differently, and that makes them view and treat money differently. Whereas I'll say this loosely, and I'll say this more from a scientific and cultural standpoint. In America, where we can stand on money, they stand on each other. That's how they've
Mm.
survived in these different cultures because they didn't have that. And matter of fact, I think one of the living in Brazil, she said something. Other lady, she said the reason that we enjoy life and we're so fiestas is because this is all we've ever had. We've never had that opportunity like you guys have. We've never had, so cash was never, that was never part. Of course, we wanted it. That's why the dreams were so big to come to America. But we take that out of the equation. If you get that, you're just, wow. I mean, either you were corrupt or you've joined the party, you know.
Yeah.
But no, this is life. And in this way of fiestive and family and community, we somehow get the money to get the things that we need. So here you got me coming over, right? And I was still in my top, my pure red blood American. I have money. I'm spending. I do what I want to do. I'm doing it because I want to do it. And they're looking at me like, wow. I didn't get that at first. Like
Mm.
I was just thinking like, okay, they're acting like this because they just don't have money. No, it's a whole mind and way of life behind it and history from where they've come from and even now where they're at. You understand?
Mhm. And yeah, it's shifting to understand that money, just like the internet, kind of disconnects us at the end of the day because
Hmm.
we're all kind of spinning trying to get more money. But when you think about how these other cultures think about money, it's more of it's a plant. It's something that they can trade, but it doesn't always enhance their happiness because they're not attached to
Hmm.
I need to make I need to make 1 million, then I need to make 2 million.
No, they don't.
Yeah,
You
they're
don't
more.
really hear. You
Mhm.
don't hear that type of talk in
Yeah.
South America. Even in the western and central part of Europe, I remember again, I was in my hardcore. And I was talking to a couple of women, and you know eh, that when you come more west, that's and I put this in my book. People size you up kind of immediately, you know. Whereas there, I don't care if you have money, you don't really talk about that. And
Mhm.
even when I was talking about it, one of the girls she kind of slapped me like, you know, you've made several contexts. You've made several. Your statements have been in context of money. You make. Why are you? You don't need to talk about it. I mean, why are you? I don't care about this. I
Mhm.
don't think I've ever really heard anybody tell me in our home country. I don't care about money.
Yeah.
Never.
So it was more about connecting to Tori as the person as
Yeah.
opposed to Tori as the bank account or the.
Yeah, they want to know who you are. I mean, I was at a party in Paris, and there was some people in there that was work. You would have never known it.
Mhm.
They don't dress, and the conversations are never, "What do you do?" That's when I had written this in my book, but I didn't. I thought I understood that, but when you're in it because when you live over here and you're coming from America, you're going to make that adjustment or you're not, because it's really frowned upon, actually, you know. And then I would see as other Americans come over, and this is not again, you know, I don't talk in sense of black and white or wrong or good or hell or heaven. Then I'm just what I'm seeing and I'm observing. And I would see them immediately start talking about their money, you know. But these people, a good deal of you, at least then, and even now, they just don't do that. They want to know who you are, okay, and you know, what is your intelligence like? Are you cool? You know, are you fun to be around? Are you trustworthy? Is it? I think one of the guys said something. I was up in the country. It's a country town. I'm here in Belgrade now, but there's a country town that I go to because I'm friends and colleagues up there. I was up there a couple of days ago, and he said one of the main reasons, because you don't see you see any foreigners there, and he said one of the main reasons that we like you is that you're very approachable, and you talk with us and you have a good. But this, had they met me prior when I started my travels, I don't know. I I don't
Yeah.
know if I would have got. They might have liked me, but they would have had to help do some training. You don't have to talk about.
Mhm.
You don't talk about this stuff so much.
Yeah. I think that's one of the things that connects us is we like to absorb ourselves in the culture as opposed to put our culture onto them.
Yeah,
It's
I was
that-
doing that. I confess, I was doing that, and I was meeting people, and the first thing I want, hey, well, what you got going on, and what can we do together? That's just and that's a cultural thing,
yeah.
because you got to understand. It's like I said before, when you have access that me and you have,
Mhm.
just the access to the amounts of capital, and then Brazil's business infrastructure. I mean, to try to okay, we can now get online. You go online, you pay the little money, and you've got an LLC. And I
Mhm.
like how Zoom and all these other places make it like a big deal. It's so easy. You do that, right? And you used to could call the IRS to get your EIN number. Now you just go online, you get that too. Then you take that to the bank, and now you got a business bank account.
Yeah.
Then there's other things you can start doing to build business credit. And all of this can be done right here. You don't have to hire an attorney. You just have to know how to read and understand basic instructions. I don't
Mhm.
know what I was trying to do in Brazil, and I'm not exaggerating, which was a lot of stuff like Brazil. And shout out to my Brazilian people. Y'all know that's a home and I love you, but you gonna be happy that I'm telling the people this too. Literally, the guy gave me a list of stuff. You've got to go over here and see. It was like you got to go see Auntie Sharon. She's got to
Mhm.
sign off. You got to get a document from her. Then you've got to go over here and do this. Then you've got to go over here and draw blood. Then you got to take the blood work back over to Harold. He's part of this committee. And I was just like,
Mhm.
what? What am I starting here? A multi-million-dollar franchise or something? I just want to get set up to do some. It was just difficult. Just setting up when me and you, I'm in business. We're
Yeah.
doing business. Just like the average person. No college degree. You don't even have to have graduated from high school. And you're set up in a merchant system to do business. And again, if you're determined and you're able to learn from your mistakes and keep learning, you can reach extreme highs. And it is just a lot of people in America just don't. It's just not like that around the world, especially in places, even so more so in places like Asia. It's just not that simple. It's not easy like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that should give us a sense of thankfulness that it's not extremely difficult, but at the same time, too much of a good thing
Hmm.
can be bad, right? It's that moderation aspect and everything in moderation and so on and so forth. But
Mm-hmm.
where my mind goes is how do we get to the point of being grateful for that ease of access, but not over consuming or taking advantage of it, which I think is where we're at today. And maybe it's been like that for hundreds of years, but we're currently in our conscious, state here during this time frame. And I just think obviously we want to always push things forward and improve things and make
Mm-hmm.
things better. But it's the where does the overconsumption stop? Obviously, it starts with the individual, and then that individual impacts a person. But I'm just trying to think about ways that somebody listening in today can walk away from the show with a better approach than they came on the show with when it comes to thinking about money, because you think you don't have enough and then you have enough and you want more and then you buy things, and until you have that shift and that it clicks, everything up to that point is difficult. Like you're putting yourself in a bad position, and sometimes consciously, sometimes it's subconsciously.
Oh, Greg, I think you said it. It's an individual thing for America,
Yeah.
because I'm going to tell you something that one of my friends said. He's a younger guy, and I have these conversations with him because it's a safe space.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, he said something that I hadn't heard anybody. I know it. I'm actually writing a book on it now. I'm doing some work on this, and because this is from research from when I was, in the university, and he said America is a political. He said you guys, it's a political country. Um,
Mm.
and how that connects to this is the individualism. Whereas here in Serbia, that culture, that culture that kept them together to gain their country, but when they lost their country for 500 years to the Ottoman, to the Turks. Well, how did they gain that back? It wasn't no individualism. It was culture. It was stuff that was passed, and passed. Food, religion, languages, dress, camaraderie, different things in how they relate to each other. That is what they held to regain, and then of course throw the rest of the world into World War II. Well, we don't have that. America is like you want to call it, what do you call it? Louisiana. It's a gumbo. There is no one culture. There is no socialist. There is not the Vietnamese. This culture, that's stuff they've passed for centuries. I lived there for 3 years. I see this is stuff they were doing 400 years ago. Even when the countries involved in civil wars with China, this is stuff they've always done. Well, our place in essence, it's funny when I watch now, after studying anthropology, as I told you, here in Europe, and you see these politicians talk about culture. This is our culture, but that's not really what this was even designed for. The forefathers didn't really design. They were getting away from that. That's why they broke away from Europe. They was like, let's get rid of all of this. This is one thought. No. Let's open it up. Science. Let's make it individual. That is the culture. So it really is up to that person, because everything on our TVs and our radios and our billboards is telling you to spend and earn. Period. There is no, well, this doesn't make you a good man. This is not who we are. We pride ourselves in wearing these shirts on this thing because this means we did this and this is that. No, that's not us. So in the culture is individual. It is up to the individual. And I want to add that, let me tell you something, it's difficult. With the psychology, when you understand psychology and you're in a system, a caste, when you're in a caste and you see that whole environment is mimicking at least one, it's very difficult, because you got your family. I've dealt with it. Mm-hmm. You've dealt with it. You've got your family. When I was a younger man I started business when I was 20. This wasn't no e-commerce. I mean, I started the old school. I had contracts. I had to deal with people. We didn't do no emails. I talked on the phone to someone. You understand? I'm dealing with government officials on my car. I had to go see these people. To make stuff right, I had to go in person. There was no let me show you how on YouTube. There was, you got to get out there and figure it out and make it happen. And there was no culture to help me stand on. That was just who I was, what I wanted, and me understanding who I was dealing with. You see what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So that individual that you said, how do we get? I don't believe we can, because I think that our country was set up. I end with this. You want to know the terrible thing about freedom is freedom. You're responsible. No one set it up for you. There's no platform or foundation for you. True freedom. These people, the government, that's not freedom. Freedom is, okay, the government's doing one thing, but I'm finna do what I need to do I'm not holding the government liable. I'm not holding ministers. See, here, and even in you hold the state, they holding the church. Everybody the king, everybody has somebody to point to. And true freedom, the person you're pointing to is. So unfortunately, you got people who, that'll be their thing. I'm gonna constantly talk to you all about, this is what you need to do to not get caught up. And I guess you have to subscribe to those people. But again, that still points back to you and who you are as a person and how you evolving or not evolving. You know what I mean? Because we don't have what these other people have had for hundreds, thousands of years to stand on, to fall back on when we lose ourselves in this cycle of getting and spending. We don't have that.
Yeah, I think most people know the news is, bad for you as far as like all the negativity on it.
Yeah.
But people, a lot of the percentage of folks, at least in the United States, they still watch it because they want guidance. Like they want, like I think as people, going back to the 1700s or 1800s, we want that central point of leadership to provide us with guidance on here's a framework to live based off of. And what you just hit on was freedom. It doesn't really have that framework. We're trying to figure it out, and then
you're responsible.
Yeah.
So it's amazing. I love this because I love the freedom of America. If you've studied it and then you lived up everywhere else, they don't really you've got to vacationing, going to these places, vacationing, staying in the tourist areas, you'll never get it. But when you start to live and deal, like that was another thing in Brazil, also with Vietnam. Oh, let me pick on Vietnam. And by the way, if anybody sees this in Vietnam, happy tech, please don't get mad at me because I'm not coming. But I want to rest. I want to do stuff. I want to stay home. I'm already traveling now, and yeah, I'm sorry, but I'm there 2-3 times a year, so you just have to forgive me. But in Vietnam, I kid you not, it's a joke, but it's reality, So they'll pass a law today. Okay, everybody, the e-visa is available to all of these countries, and then tomorrow you'll wake up, and we would say Uncle Ho and them would drink. They'll have some beers because that's part of the culture, drinking beers. They'll drink some beers. We've changed. 50% out of those 50 countries, we're only going to do 25. And then next month you'll come back and it's something totally different. So their lives and what they do is more. When we Americans could complain about the government, like no. Their lives are really connected to what the government does and to what the government doesn't do. And I learned that living over there real quickly because I stayed away from when I go to places and I stay away from the tourists and I stay away from the expats. I don't live anywhere near them and I don't go anywhere where they go. But you can hear rumblings. They would complain because they're doing this binary comparison from where they come from, but they didn't really catch the drift of what they were even complaining about. Is here, this is their way. Where it's coming from the West, we are free. The government will pass something. Okay, there's ways around it. You know what I mean? Here, you're like, okay, first we start with what the government says, even with money. Okay, then from there we go. And if while we're going down this path, the government says this is cut off, that's it. There is no let's sit it and take it and debate. It's the same thing in Brazil. You just have to get even, and this trickles down. Like I went in to get people couldn't believe how I did this. I went in and I got like the equivalent of a social security number in Brazil. And you're supposed to have a residence permit. And I didn't have a residence permit. And I walked in there and I guess I was just cool. And I was just, hey, with the guy and stuff. He gave me a social security, a Brazilian cigar. He was like, how did you get that? But that's Brazil. You can go, but same person can go in there even with a residence permit, and it's possible you may not walk out of that. Well, that's not the case in America. It's just you see what the picture I'm trying to point to see how much of their governments and then also how much of the organized, which is huge here in the Balkans. That's all we've been talking about. How much of the organized corruption here controls these people's lives. So they have to look because they can't get money to do this and do that like how we do. So they have to look at other ways. They have to have something to push them forward in other ways to exist because they can't be it's difficult being individuals here, man. You need to know people because you're going to need help. You can't run to a bank that easy and get some money. A credit card debt, please. Please. Yeah. It's not easy.
Yeah, there are people out there. I mean, they're selling like, if you have over a 600 credit score, you can get $100,000 credit card and start your business. And it's like, that is where the generation before me are growing up to think you have to get this $100,000 credit card, and then you start a business, and that's the dream that you need to, break out of your, situation. And that's what's being stirred around. And a lot of people on podcasts allude to it as there's some type of opposition. So it's some people against you, the healthcare system, the government, the financial, the banks, these people are kind of brainwashing you to do something that they know is going to be negative for you, the fast food, the, whatever it may be. They know it's going to be negative for you, but they make it so easy that your animal mind just kind of goes right to it, and it's that easy.
It's freedom.
But, yeah.
Listen, that's freedom. And I told you when I did the first show with you, like I struggled to get into social media. I got my first social media account in 2019, and the only thing that pushed me to get that was that I was traveling the world. And you asked the question on the last show. You said what I want to leave, and Facebook is the only one I have. I think a good deal of the other ones are for kids. I mean, it's just sorry, I didn't mean to step on anybody's toes, but that's my feelings of it. And I would like to leave my Facebook because you can pass it. I like to leave it to my daughters so that they can see, they've traveled with me around, but they can see some of my interactions and stuff like that. But for the most part, man, just speaking to Malatin, which is a gentleman who I went skiing with here this past weekend, and I would say 30% of everything that came out of his mouth was, even when he was dropping me off this afternoon, was pushed toward the corruption.
Really?
And how they're benefiting. He said because cars in Europe they're very expensive. The used cars are very expensive because it's not a real, they don't have the vast land. And he was like, this apartment over here, these apartments are $400 or $500, and then you're seeing these people, right, with driving around in these $70,000, $80,000 cars, right, and the average salary here in Belgrade and also in Eastern Europe, maybe $1,500 to $2,000. That's a really good set. 2,000, but the average is $1,200, $1,500 a month.
Mm-hmm.
That's the average decent. I'm not talking fast food worker.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking somebody who has a decent job. And if you're getting close to 2,000, I was looking at an apartment when I was moving in Bucharest, and the guy owned the apartment, and he was a civil engineer, seasoned civil engineer. I don't know what, these people, they're inspired to tell me stuff. He's making $1,500 a month, Greg. He said, I know I can come to America and make $100,000.
Oh, yeah.
But he's like, here's circumventing back to what you just said, but I love my life and culture and family here. Mm-hmm. And even so much, me and my brother, we're going to combine our families and we're just going to get a house. So his wife and kids and my wife and kids, we're all going to live in one house, and I'm just going to rent this. And he was happy. Are you starting to catch? Have you ever heard anybody like talk to that?
Nope.
Anybody? Yeah. Even in our movies, have you even seen any shows where anybody's doing anything?
Yeah, it's complete shift. I mean, and if you don't travel like you're doing, you're stuck in the jar, and you're not seeing the label.
And the thing that, like what you said before I said this, and I say this sparingly, and I say this emotionally, because I know it's by a lack of experience and understanding, even for individuals who've been educated. In our system, I don't believe, I'm one of those people, I never have. I don't know how that hit me. And we could dig through. This show's it's not that long, but when I was 21, it was something in me, because I used to vote Republican, but I had my own reasons for it at 21. I was like, listen, I'm voting this because I want to be responsible totally for me. Because to me, I saw that's what freedom meant. I'm not dependent on Social Security, but I also told myself I'm not even dependent on Wall Street.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
True freedom is I'm dependent on me, and I'm not going to blame anyone. Because see, they're going to do what they, and that's kind of like that's definitely the mindset once you leave. Okay, as I was telling you about Mladen, with the corruption is blatant here. There's tons of Russians that they're pouring in down from because the Serbian and Russia they're like brothers, and you just know that. But their minds, I like it. That's the corruption. That's them. We're not joining them. And yeah, I get angry about it, but I'm still gonna stay in my lane. And that's kind of like how I was. I didn't want to grow up blaming anybody. I didn't want to blame the government. I didn't want to blame the majority of the majority of the population. I didn't want to blame my parents. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to say if I'm making it, it's because I'm making it, and if I'm not, it's because I'm not making it.
Yeah.
So what? Yeah, the government passes stuff that isn't favorable, but it also passes a lot of stuff that is favorable. I know this because I had contracts at 22 years old, right? In the South. In the South, people, in the South. Okay. So yeah, there's pluses and minuses, but isn't that life?
Mm-hmm.
So I think I don't know if me and you talked about this on the mountain, but this is one of those things that I keep with me since I've been traveling. When I was living in Vietnam, 97% of the time was paradise. But there was that 3% where I would have some instances.
Yeah.
And so what do? Do you focus on the 97%? Or do you put your mind on that 3% that they could have been ugly? Definitely, I'm not there's ugly experiences, but 90%, and that's how I came up in our country.
Mm-hmm.
We've got issues, but everybody does. I personally have issues, right? Okay, so let me look in this system, and I saw that's huge pluses. I don't see how people, and that's why you see why foreigners when they are dying to get in, it's like I wish I had your problems.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what they bow to our system. And you don't know that until you've lived. You will never get this being a tourist, people. Never.
Yeah.
You will never. I invite everybody I think for all individuals who have kids, here they call it gap year in Europe. I know Obama's daughter, she did it. You need to send your kids away for a year. Because for the kids who did that in America and came back, they totally different. The appreciation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The world is evolving, but in some ways around the world, it just isn't, or it's evolving. And we're talking about it as far as the economy. It's not evolving at the rate that we are. I don't light speed.
I think that's why conversations like this and getting a lens into how other people think help you sift through your own thoughts. And when you realize how much of our thoughts are that victim, like it's like, oh, it's because of them. It's because of them. And it's until you put it on yourself, and it burns to say like it's on me, like that's my fault. And but until you can do that, you're stuck. You can't get out and take responsibility. And I think that's what that gap year does. Like I've had people come back from doing a gap year like that, and they're just changed by how they talk.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a result of how they think, and it probably changes how they feel about what they have access to. And I think that's the biggest benefit. And you don't come across enough people that have that they say culture shock. What is a culture shock? It's really putting yourself in an environment that questions everything that you thought was true before. And I think that's important for so many people. You've definitely gotten it time and time again, I'm sure.
I got
Continue to get it. Yeah.
stories galore. I mean, when you remember when you sent this text to me, you was like, "Hey, my people want to hear you talk about that." I lit up like a Christmas tree, and like I just came from the mountains, like simultaneously. I walked in and I was pushing him, go, go, go. I was arranging everything because I was super excited to do this, because it's such a it has had this is has had such a major impact on my life. Let me give you something else. There was a young lady. She was Italian, and she had left Italy to live in London. And we met, and we were going to spend time together in Germany. And again, this was Christmas of 2018. So I'd been gone from America like about a year and a half. So, but I was still. It takes a while. I remember another friend of mine. She said, "How long?" She was like, "What's that?" I was like, "It was difficult. It's not easy." So I don't want to just beat people over the head. People, this is not an easy process. You have to first accept it, and I didn't. And we were out and we were having this conversation, and she which is definitely a conversation that happens with certain people around Europe and South America. And she was like, but why do you have to buy so much? Why is everything about money? She was talking like that. And you want to know what my words was? I was like, well, what difference does it make to you? If someone's, because she was equating happiness, she was, and in a philosophical argument, I won. Okay. But in the grand scheme of things, I was a big loser. Okay.
Thick description.
Oh yeah, I was a loser. And she says, and I told her, I said, "Hey, listen, if that's what that man wants to do, if that's his happiness, that's his thing. If his way is to earn money, that's his thing. And if it's to spend, what is it to you? That's his. Do you want to take that?" 2 years later, I got what she was saying. Because then that guy, I looked on my feet. Greg, check this out. This is a good show. I'm glad to tell. This is stuff I've never told people. I was living in Vietnam. I had purchased a pair of Adidas in Romania in 2018. I left Vietnam in 2021. I still had those. Those were my only shoes, and they were in perfect. I didn't buy any more shoes. I wasn't buying things at all. And I wish I could have saved those shoes and like hung them up on the wall, because I've never had a pair of shoes that I wore and was using for 3 years as like my main shoe. Do you understand what I'm saying? But I actually felt good about that. I had a life. I didn't have things. I had a life.
Yeah.
I had a life over there. I didn't have time to buy stuff. I was too busy living. That's just me. I'm not picking on anybody. Don't shoot no nasty messages to Greg. It's just me.
Put them in the chat. We definitely read all the messages, and everybody that comes on and subscribes, you have a free voice to dump on it and be negative, but maybe some people just need to get it out, because I think a lot of folks they want to live. They don't want to be stuck in the buying, but they keep doing it.
Yeah.
So
it's difficult.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
It's not a 1 week vacation that says, "Oh, I'm now shocked back to I'm shocked back to the person I want to be." It's that continual work.
It's difficult. And even now, traveling, one of the reasons I took this flat, it had a jacuzzi. And it was perfect location, but it was nice, but it was affordable. And so I'm always, and I tell her, I got a girlfriend of mine, she lives in Romania, and she's a business owner. And I saw the pattern in her life, because she's just now being able to get into cash, Greg. The wall came down in what was that, around the 90s, the beginning of the 90s? Well, that was what a lot of people don't realize. There was still a huge transition going on. In Russia, they still had their communist, even though you thought it collapsed, I've looked at, they were still operating like that. And that was still pretty much even now you can still see hints of communism here in the eastern part. Even in Prague, where I live at, you can see hints of it. It's it is still there. And I saw her get her business, and she started. And I looked back, and I was like, this seems very familiar. She was always buying, always spending, always buying. Good girl, and doing good with it. She's buying things. She likes to ski, track, all of these things. And I spoke with her 2-3 weeks ago. She's in financial problems.
Yeah.
She's in financial problems because we had took a trip together to the south of Italy, and we were trying to rent some Vespas, and we both had enough money. And the guy was like, "I need $1,000 deposit," and I was like, "I'm not. No, for what? I mean, because I'm like, if I give you this, you can easily say, yeah, you broke that." I was like, "Nah, no, 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 no." And she was pushing out, and I looked at her. I said, "Listen, sweetheart, just because you have the money, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to spend it." She paused, but I think she'd never heard that before, because I think when some people get money that definitely they hadn't had access to it or haven't had it before, they think that money, like us, is made to, maybe it's just something, it's made to spend.
Yep.
No, I had no problem. And we could have rented that thing for 2-3 months. I had no problem telling them, nope, bye-bye. No problem at all. That's who I am today. Nope. I could have $2 billion. I probably would have did the same thing. You know what? I'm good. We don't need it. I'm not giving you $1,000 deposit. It's just something about that. But before, bring the best one out. Bring your best Vespa out.
Yeah. That's the mindset piece. I mean, that's the hard work. That's a result of the hard work and the, potentially making missteps that get you there, where now you have the way you look at it. It's not, I have it in my cup. My cup's full of it. Let's go ahead and drain the cup. Let's hemorrhage it because it's there. And it might, might start losing value. It might, might get stolen. Like it's almost like that's how we think of money. Like, we're like, someone's coming for it. Let's get rid of it as fast as possible. Yeah.
It's like a friend of mine's little boy. Kid. I don't know if your children went through this, but I still think it's the cutest thing. I know we tried to break my youngest daughter with it. When you give them something and then you go for it, when they turn their whole bodies like that. And we're like that with our money. Yeah. I gotta hurry. This is mine. Let me hurry up. I gotta get rid of it, because if I don't get rid of it, somebody else is gonna get it.
Yeah. The opposition, them or somebody coming out.
Whoever them are. Right. Whoever they are. I love it.
They. It's like it's the person that's always against you, which it's really you against, it's really you against yourself.
Yeah.
Until I kind of realize that, and I'm still on the journey to realize it's not you get there and then you're on top of the mountain and you figured it out.
Mm-hmm.
Once you start to realize that, when you stop blaming other people, it's somewhat not necessarily takes away all the stress, but it's a little bit less of the race.
Mm-hmm.
You're not racing away from them. Mm-hmm. You could be racing toward them to try to make things better. So
I don't know, man. I honestly can't lie to you until anything special happened. I didn't have my parents were loose, but and of course my grandparents and I knew both sets of my great grandparents, and my great grandparents were healthy until they passed in my late 20s. So I had a lot of heritage and identity passed over to me, and that helped. And they were not. They all of them had, but they were not lavish about it. I remember family, and I remember them putting love, and that was always the foundation of everything, right? But yeah, they were doctors and teachers, and my great grandmother, she got a college degree in like the 30s. I don't know, 20s or 30s, somewhere around about that time. But the mindset, if we're gonna talk about mindset, this was the same woman that raised my grandfather and his sisters. They all grew up to do really well, but she stayed in the community, stayed close to a college, and would constantly keep one of the rooms or two of the rooms open to college students so that they didn't have to pay. They had a really nice house, so so the college, they were always trying to help. But not necessarily look at help as, let me go find people who are poor or homeless, because those are not the only people who need, help. Helping college students. So here's a room and you don't have to pay that much. That's what I saw, and then I would say my generation, well, actually, no, I'm going to say my mother's generation and father's generation. That's when it changed. When I look at their lives scientifically and not looking at their lives from being their son, and being let's keep it specific, being minorities, they started, the parents, my grandparents around them started doing things that wasn't really kind of synonymous to the historical raise. They started, I'm going to use this term loosely, spoiling. They allowed my father was, they were buying him a lot of stuff. We're talking 60s when this starts, 60s going into the 70s. And I listened to my mother, and I even heard stories of my father. That's when it starts. That individualism in my family, that's when it starts. At my parents, and I think my parents I think we have these labels, they're considered baby boomers.
Yeah.
That's when it started in my family, because everything from them back was not focused on, like my mother, she was like, I don't want to live in this state. This is where everybody, I'm gonna, if I have to marry, I think she told, I hope she, one of the main things, a sentence to marry my father was, he didn't live in the state. So I'm getting away. I'm getting away, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's when it started. And then when it got down to me and my sister, oh, it was rampant then, man. We talked about this in the 80s. We lived the American dream. I don't remember seeing any homeless. The people who were supposed to be the poor people, they had Jordans. Everybody was doing good. If you slept on the street, it's because you didn't want to go home. Wasn't no homeless. It didn't exist. Everybody, his cousins driving Honda Sprees. You remember those Honda Sprees? I don't know if you remember those. Yeah, these people were driving cars at 14 and 15 when I was growing up. I mean, that's when it started. And then you take that generation, we can say, now, if they like this and they didn't break the chain, I know I tried to always have purpose when I was buying my daughters. I linked it to something, like my daughter had a laptop. She had a laptop when she was in the, what was that? She had a laptop when she was in kindergarten. But my daughter was at that time, she was going to a $14,000 school. She ended up graduating from that high school. It was at $30-something thousand a year. She was going to this really, one of the top schools in the world, where it was fostering that. So it was never really presented these things that I was getting her as, this is a thing. I am this makes me something. No, this is a tool. It was a tool.
Yeah.
And I would use it with her because I would buy like CDs, learning CDs to, she wasn't, maybe I may have had a couple of games on it, but it wasn't a toy. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? So it's a difference, right? And I would buy her these nice clothes, but I'm like, I'm buying you nice clothes because you're in certain environments. And then I would take her out to dinner. So it wasn't like there was an appreciation and a purpose to it that I was setting in her mind than just buying her stuff. You see what I'm talking about? Oh, you've got this nice bicycle. You've got this. She went to school with a good deal of the people in her classroom were worth billions. Literally. She went to school with not only just very wealthy people, but she went to school with Clint Black. I know Clint Black. That's Lily's father. Vince Gill, Amy Grant. She spent a night over Amy's house. Tim McGraw, Faith. She was going to school with their kids. So she was in this environment, and I put purpose to it. But then you could go across town into some of the lore as far as money. I'm not ranking people in the class system. And you see certain people with these same things, they're just buying these things for God only knows what reasons. Hey, listen, you're walking around, your child has got $200 shoes on, and you live in a $600 apartment. It just doesn't make sense to me anymore. You see what I'm talking about?
Mhm.
What are you?
Yeah.
Is this child going to be an athlete or something, or is it walking around? This child's wardrobe costs more than mine.
Yeah.
You see?
Yeah. Oh yeah. But that's you did it intentionally as a leadership figure that they were looking up to on how you acted and instilled in them certain mindsets that you got from your parents and then they got from their parents. And that's that generational piece that a lot of people blame it on. But how do people that don't have parents that do that, what I think that's a good way to kind of round out the discussion. Before we get there,
Wow.
I'm gonna put the link to your book, throw this
Okay.
book in the trash.
Thank you.
So everybody check that out. I just I'm about 75% of the way through, and this actually, has helped throughout developing what we're going to talk about today is through that book, and it's incredible. And you guys have already gotten a taste of what Torrey's brain offers the world and how he approaches things, and the book just kind of expands upon that. So definitely check it out.
Thank you,
Looking
Greg.
forward to that. But yeah, Torrey. So back to kind of the the people that didn't have that guidance. How do they get on the right track of not looking at things as toys and looking at things as tools and using them for good, whether it's money, whether it's things, whether it's just how they approach their day to day and utilizing their bank account that has a number in there.
Oh, you know what? I'm gonna do something that I learned. My when did I say I really got this? Ooh, yeah, at the end of my philosophical studies, and back when I was in school for philosophy, and give you the honest, not so comfortable answer or to this, and tell you I don't know.
Yeah.
There's no way I could possibly answer that. I could conjure up some things that would fit good in like an equation type, because as you said in the last show, A plus B equals C. I could do that. But I know that that's just hypothetical. I know that that's just on a whiteboard. From how someone evolves from here to there, even using science in this, because it's so you like that term in anthropology. It's a thick description. You like that.
Oh yeah.
It's so many different things that affected me to get here. One of the last ones was divorce. Divorce, and then I was just the thing that I have to put out here. Because I grew up in a time, a really refreshing time in America, in Nashville, Tennessee. I was born in '78, and I grew up in the '80s, and so I have a tattoo of a broken heart. One of the things that has my heart broke was by the time that at 40, when I beginning with 39, when I left America, I hated to see my country like that. I hated to see us like that, fighting each other and tearing at each other like that. So that was the things that I was just like, I didn't grow up like this. I grew up living with all kinds of people. And I grew up living with people who didn't like me for whatever reason. I was a mischievous kid. And that was okay, because that was life. And they didn't use that dislike to hurt me. So it was, I didn't care. And I guess I was taught not to care, but the majority of people, they respected me. I was never harmed. I grew up in great neighborhoods where Christmas felt like it was a neighborhood thing. It didn't feel individual, Greg. Because when we all opened our toys, and everybody would come outside. That's all ethnicities, and this was like a middle class neighborhood, so we pretty much were all on the same level, a bit higher, a bit lower. We'd all come out and play. We all played every day. We fell out with each other. We fell back in with each other. That's the world I grew up in. And so when I was 39, to see everybody getting grouped up like how they are and pointing at each other's group, and then take it, now you're not pointing at the next group, you're pointing at the government. I just
Yeah.
the distrust of your fellow citizens, the distrust of your government. I didn't grow up in that world.
Hmm.
And living around the world, that's something you still don't see. Even this district, of course, in the Balkans, but just I don't want to live like that. I don't. The life is definitely not perfect. It's not Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, right? But then again, this is not. What's that character that we Halloween Michael Myers? I don't want to.
Yeah.
It's not Mr. Rogers. This is two extremes, right? I don't want to
Mhm.
live in either one of those. It's somewhere in between here, as Aristotle said, is that mean is happiness. You're going to have a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And that's what I grew up to. So to see this, and again, with all of this opportunity so obviously maybe opportunity and money isn't such of the solution when you have as much as we have, and you say, well, people can't be fighting over it in America. There's enough to go around. Okay, period. You may not believe that because you've never lived anywhere. If you never lived places where it's acceptable for your daughter to go out and sell herself sexually and not be disrespected because she's taking care of the family. That's part of the culture. You understand?
Mhm.
So there's enough money to go around, and there's enough to go around. So that broke. Those are the things that pushed me, Greg, to answer your question.
Yeah.
An individual, what a collective? I don't know. It's
Yeah.
nowhere in the world I could. And if I did, I'd come off as being a pompous jerk, an idiot trying to answer that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Be
The
honest with
common,
you. I don't know.
I like that answer. I don't think we get that answer enough. Is I don't know, and
Best
the
answer in the
the,
world
in,
most of
the
the
individuals
time.
have to figure it out on their own and ask themselves the right question. But I think it starts with finding a way to get yourself out of that victim mindset of blaming other people and taking accountability, for your own choices. And that's one of the biggest things that I admire about the way you approach the world. And you continue to say it throughout this episode is that if you succeed or if you fail, you're looking in the mirror and pointing at Tori. You're not
It's me.
pointing at them. Yep.
It's me. It's
Yeah.
difficult.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is. It's
Mhm.
extremely difficult. But it's more so easier for me because I don't have I'm not hardwired. You hardwire yourself repeating stuff over and over. We know
Yep.
this
Totally.
scientifically.
Yep.
So I've never. So even if I jump over in there, my brain is like, you don't have too many connections in here to substantiate that. So then
Mhm.
I'm thrust back. Well, I can't stay in there. But okay. All right, well, I did this, and I didn't do enough of this.
Mhm.
Let me ask you something really quick. You know where we met at. I'll trade loosely because I don't know, how much of, what you want to share. But there's a thing in anthropology that we studied. It's called New Age movement, New Age, New religion. It kind of maps what we're talking about. And what it is individuals are coming out of, let's say Christianity or school or Islam or Judaism, or I need to work like this. And they're doing things like going to yoga retreats or ayahuasca. And what they're doing is they're taking the responsibility of breaking themselves down, looking for therapeutic, looking for meaning. And then for those who find that meaning, whether it's on top of a mountain drinking ayahuasca, then they take that and they bring it back. And our studies were showing that these people are bringing that back. They're saying, this is how I want to worship or not worship. And this is how I want to do business or not do business. This is how I want to raise my children or not have children. And this is who I want to be in a relationship. But it's not necessarily to support these different groups that everybody have given titles to. It's a new age movement of these people going out, digging deep within themselves, going to this place where they can work, whether it's over a period of time and then once they get enough, then they bring that back and they incorporate that into their existence. I found out when we were studying it in class, I was more so just trying to stay in the studies. I think I fall, if we want to talk about groups, I'll fall in that where I'm really, really using all of the tools that I can find, all of the different things that I can find, and I won't be ashamed. I've done ayahuasca 3 times. I do it yearly. That's one thing. I have other things. I'm definitely a believer in Christ, but That's my thing. I don't put that on the world, and I don't say that this is. But I have but it's a spectrum of things. That's what I do. But I would never ever tell anybody, endorse anybody to choose religion. I would never endorse anybody to choose ayahuasca. I never endorse anybody to travel. I just can tell you what it's been rewarding for me, but I've also known a lot of people who've done it, and it was a very unpleasant experience. But
Yep.
I would just kind of like model my book and say, look inside and take your feelings. And I missed that show a couple of weeks ago. Your feelings, listen. Maybe you should listen to other people. Maybe you shouldn't. But I think ultimately you're gonna have to make that decision to get out of that. And I won't even say vicious cycle, because I don't want to judge it. I don't want to be self-righteous. That cycle, because then again, if you don't want to leave that cycle, you're not going to go anywhere. I don't care what you do. It's not going to happen. You got to I really wanted to be here today. I wanted to be this man. It wasn't that I needed to be. Need is good, but I think we go further. You will go further. You need food, you need air, but I think you will go further for what humans go further for what and I want to be here today. I want to be this person. And the person that I still project myself to be. That's me. I would never give that as an antidote to anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So who do you want to be? Yeah. I'm asking the question. I'm not going to tell you. Who do you want to be?
Yeah.
How do you really want to live your life?
Yeah. Where are you planting seeds? Where are you planting seeds? And those practices that you discussed, are you planting seeds to grow in an area within your spirit as opposed to your ego? And I think a lot of people are battling that. And it's this like conscious revolution that a lot of people talk about because of social media, because we have so much access. But we have to figure out practices on our own, but being exposed to these types of conversations allow people to hear other people's practice and then take it back to their own spirit and say, where do I want to plant my next seed? And I think if we plant seeds each day, each week, each month, those seeds add up to a field of beautiful flowers or food that you can utilize for your wider community, as opposed to thinking about the only thing that gets there is money. And I think that's what we've kind of rounded out to. But Tori, always a great pleasure. I want to acknowledge you for the way you approach the world. It's refreshing. It's something that I really value. I value our friendship and our bond.
Yeah, me too, man.
And I look forward to bringing you back on the show in the future and continuing to share what I'd look at as these breakthrough ideas that more people need access to. So definitely check out Tori's book, throw this book in the trash, and you're going to have a great experience throughout that book. And Tori, always a pleasure, and looking forward to continuing the chat.
Thank you so much, Greg. Like I said, I really enjoyed this, and I jumped hurdles. It wasn't easy. It wasn't the best route to get here today. You get all set up, but I jumped hurdles because this is a treat for me as well. Thank you.